said, you know what? Sex every night sounds pretty good.
And there's the start of our podcast. That was perfect. I clicked record just at the right time. Welcome in to another episode of Too Many Points. I am Mac Moore, and I apologize to any of our fans, all 12 of them, for missing the last couple of weeks. This was the start of not only a crazy football season with the pandemic going on, but I wasn't even sure if there was going to be a high school season. I wasn't sure if I was going to get laid off heading into this fall, but sports are happening. I had to jump into that full force and did not have enough time to start talking with you guys, but now I have a little bit of time, not a lot, so we're going to jump in. I couldn't miss an opportunity to talk about the first week of the NFL season, talk about college football and all of its craziness, the Supernova Belt Conference taking over. That's what their new name is now. And I just had to make sure, and we got NBA, and I feel bad missing the first 3 weeks, but guess what? Most important is the finals. Get the conference finals right now. Going to have a fun couple weeks of basketball coming up. So I knew I had to get on the horn with Jackson Schneider and Marco Marquez. Guys, how's it going after this is really the return of sports. Forget everything else. It was like, we got a couple things. Now sports are back.
Oh my God, it feels so good. I can't even tell you how good it felt to wake up on Saturday and to just not leave this couch for hours.
I think I had a combined maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 steps accumulated over the weekend, which is perfectly fine because that means my Saturdays and Sunday was spent how I wanted it to spend it. Nothing came up surprising, nothing like that. It was great.
See, that's good. My watch said you're not meeting your calorie goals, which is hilarious because those goals were set from me being lazy over the last few months. So I was that much extra lazy, and it has to keep reminding me. I think my favorite is the watch when it tells me, good job getting up, this hour. And I'm like, God, you set the bar so low for me. And it's like a slap in the face. You're pretending. This is some passive-aggressive shit coming from my smartwatch. But that's probably my favorite bit of technology, and I will get rid of this watch as soon as the contract runs out because, God, that's just too depressing. But getting into the first week of football, I did say before we jumped on that we're going to start with college and some sadness for all of us because me and Marco are out in Lawrence still holding it down as Jayhawk fans, as sad as that can be. And then Jackson Schneider, who, pretended to be a Jayhawk fan for a while but really was a Wildcat fan and finally got to make it out to a job in Manhattan. So congratulations, Jackson. But as soon as you get there, you cause K-State to tank. They get taken down by Arkansas State. What happened, Jackson?
And that's just on me. It's just my fault. All there is to it, man. I didn't come prepared. I wasn't ready for the game, and it showed. And it's my fault.
Did you get arrested for trying to break into the stadium?
No, I drove past twice, listening on the radio, wishing that I could get in there. Because with my new job, I'll get cleared for credentials, but it was too short of a turnaround to get them for the first game. But oh my gosh, I had FOMO so bad. I just wanted to be in there in some capacity, and I couldn't be. But then about mid-third quarter, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's okay that I'm not in there right now.
If there was a game to miss, this one was it. Marco, watching the Jayhawks, I've seen things as this is the worst half of football in KU Jayhawk history, which says a lot if you've watched any Jayhawk football in the last few years. First, Marco, would you agree with that assessment? And how much did you cry on Saturday?
Unfortunately, I don't let KU football get to me to the point of where I need to have tears anymore because right now it's just pain, and I think it's sad that it's, more felt used to. And watching the game I don't think this is – I want to make sure I say this right. Watching that KU game right there, I want to say it looks like they have a quarterback in Kendrick. I mean, the guy put up 100. Yeah, exactly. See, you're kind of yeah. But it's I
don't know if that was against the scrubs because I have no idea who the good players are because it's Coastal Carolina. So
right.
They could have pulled the starters for all I know.
They're good. That's a good football team, okay?
That was a redshirt freshman who shredded them.
They compared him to Troy Aikman before he took a snap, okay? That's how you know he's good.
Hey, normally that's a big blunder from whoever's on the announce team. This time it was not a prediction; it was a spoiler. He nailed it with the Troy Aikman comparison because that guy murdered us. Like, all I'm thinking is, how in the world could KU find a way to steal such an elite talent from a powerhouse school like Coastal Carolina? Because that's what KU needs to do: find a way to slip in, steal some of those guys who are, going down to the 15th school in the Carolinas. Like, if we can start beating those guys out, maybe Kansas can return to be a powerhouse football program. Who knows?
Tell you right now, though, you have to find some kind of silver lining with that game. It's your sophomore running back Felton Gardner coming in with Puka Williams. I really want to say that the Jayhawks almost had 2 100-yard rushers in their game on Saturday, but Coastal Carolina just about did the same thing on the Jayhawks defense, giving up 30-plus points to a Sun Belt team, 35-plus points.
Supernova Belt team.
Yeah, to a Sun Belt team is just for D1 for a team like KU and a conference like the Big 12. I guess which really isn't known for its defense. You would think that this team would have been a little bit more ready coming out, but my God, they looked flat. They did not look like a Division I football team out there, and we said that a lot about KU. But usually their first game of the season is a competitive one, and this one right here just looked like the Jayhawks were straight gassed when they in that first half that you were talking about.
Well, it's tough because I felt like the first drive was really good. KU got the ball first. They were aggressive. They moved right down the field. And then one tough luck play turned into a turnover, and then it was gone. Like, it just vanished into the night. And before you knew it, it was 28-3 at halftime. And everybody's on Twitter talking about the end of the world because, honestly, you mentioned it earlier, Mac. It was possibly one of the worst halves of football in KU history. I don't remember one that's worse. But that being said, KU came back in the third quarter and made it a pretty competitive ball game. And one questionable call on that onside kick kind of changed the tides once again. If KU ended up getting that onside kick, the offsides ruling wasn't there, which I'm still going to die on the hill. That's not offsides. But that's a whole other discussion. If KU gets that onside kick, who knows the discussion we're having right now. I felt like there are a lot of ways that second half could have gone. KU could have laid down, given up, and just completely gotten pounded by a Supernova Belt school.
Yeah, thank you for
they
getting it right,
made
Jackson.
a game of it in the end of things. And the sad thing is that we have to sit here and say, hey, they made a game of it against a lower conference. But, I mean, it could have been a lot worse, all things considered.
So I would say if we're going to go recent memory of a bad half of football, there was TCU a few years back where it was like -6 yards of offense. So that's probably up there, and you got to compare. It's like TCU at their least powerful or this Coastal Carolina team that apparently is just strong-willed and could take KU out. It's weird. It's such a bad loss. We couldn't even go to the argument of Sunbelt got the extra practices. It's like, okay, that is a huge advantage. And in any other situation, okay, that makes sense. That's a reason to lose. You can't go down 28-3 against this team that you're literally putting on the schedule for a free win. And to do 2 years in a row for them to come here. Now you got to go to Coastal Carolina next year and just get smacked by them. Like, that's how awful this loss is. You set it up to kind of help yourselves because the only real wins KU can get is in those non-conference games. This year, you have very little non-conference games. You end up getting ruined by Coastal Carolina. And now you're going to go into a Big 12 schedule where there are not very many wins there, no matter if KU just had a rough start and can get it back on track. Even then, a good KU team, like if they've made progress over what we saw from last year, they're still not going to win that many games against these teams. They have very few on the schedule. So it's that same, doom and gloom. And I know people get upset when you start out the season, one loss means so much. But in KU's case, it's that much bigger because you have to win those games early in the year. Those are the only ones you have a shot. And after that, when fans start getting upset and thinking you're going to fire the coach because, he can't win more than 3 or 4 games. I've seen people say they should win 3 or 4 games this year, even with the reduced schedule. That's how crazy some KU fans end up being. You think they would learn how to grade on a curve a little bit better with how bad KU's been for so long, but they don't. Like, Les Miles has to find a way to win, and now it's just making it that much worse. I assume that he's nowhere close to being on a hot seat because KU set the standard pretty low, and it seems like Jeff Long's got him in there for the long haul. But damn, you can't have many games like this, or that tide turns very quickly. Any other major college football stuff that
I just wanted to tack on with this loss for KU. It's catastrophic not only for this year, but potentially for the next couple of years. Because if you sit here, and go 0-10, it's really tough to go into living rooms of recruits and explain yourself and try and convince them to come to your school to help try and change things. If you win that game, it gets a little bit easier. Still, obviously, you have your work cut out for you. But if you get dominated by a lower level school on national television, it's really hard to walk into a 3-star recruit's living room and say, yeah, we think we're going places. We think we're heading in the right direction, and we want you to be a part of that. Well, if I'm that kid sitting on the couch listening to that coming my direction, it gets really hard to trust or listen to that or even remotely want to be a part of it. So, I mean, that loss is bigger than just this year for Kansas, and that's just all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. Like, if you lose that game, same way last year, starting out with those losses, losing to Coastal Carolina, that was going to be the fate even year one with Les Miles. And then Dearman comes in, has some big, high-powered offensive games, and you're able to spin that narrative a little bit better. I don't know if you can do that again this year. It's going to be very tough, particularly with Dearman coming out week one being the guy. And they looked pretty bad on offense early. Maybe it just took a little bit of time. That I will give them a couple weeks to show us. But you have to look 100 times better than what we just saw. Or you're right, Jackson. There's going to be those recruits that you're like, hey, we got them on there. They've come. Oh, did they just say they're leaving? Did they just say they're not signing on the dotted line? That happens to KU all the time. And Les Miles avoided it year one. It's going to be a lot harder year two. Marco, any major college football stuff that really stood out other than K-State? That's more embarrassing, I think, than KU's loss because K-State was supposed to be good.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, KU, what's nice is that it's not as embarrassing for them as it was for K-State and Iowa State. But that just says, once again, the state of the football program and what it's been at for KU for the last decade. But no, I think you guys touched on those 2 points about KU being able to recruit now that it looks like the Les Miles plan is not going to be working out so well. My next thing also is, and like you said with Brett Dearman, you touched on that very well too, his play calling. There's going to be some adjustments made heading into the next few weeks, especially with the start of Big 12 play.
All right, so college football. I'm not sure how much stuff really stood out because other than the Supernova belt, that was kind of the biggest story of Saturday, and everything else was kind of relaxed a little bit. Nothing really stood out. All the other teams kind of took care of business. Heading into NFL, though, that was exciting because we got the kickoff of the NFL season was our Chiefs facing off with the Texans, and God, I could not have been more happy with super checkdown game that still landed with this just dominant victory. It's like, this is the least we have to do, and you can't keep us from dropping 30 on you. That's life now, and nothing was better than watching, that offensive attack. What do they do when they have a elite running back, first-round pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming in, and he's so fast, so agile, can catch out of the backfield, the perfect weapon. I hate any conversation that's about 16-0, so we're not going to have that. But when you're talking about an all-time type team, that's where the Chiefs are. They got everybody back. They're trying to run back that Super Bowl. And in a year where there were no practices in the offseason, where everybody's coming in not ready to go, it's all about who do you got coming back. They brought back their coordinators even. This team is ready to just go rampage on the NFL, and I'm excited for the next 17 weeks.
It doesn't get a whole lot better than that, honestly. to sit there and say, all right, we're playing with house money this year because we're coming off of a first Super Bowl in 50 seasons. Oh, by the way, we're bringing 20 of 22 starters back, plus one of the most dynamic players in the draft is now on our offense. I mean, if you're Andy Reid or Eric Bieniemy, it literally cannot get any better. And to be a Chiefs fan, it's even better for us because there's people out there that are hopping on the Chiefs bandwagon, which just feels so weird to say coming from where we've come from growing up Chiefs fans. But, like, for us to have sat through the Damon Hewards and the Tyler Thigpens and just the disastrous seasons of the past, it's been such a fun year, and it seems like it's only getting better.
I'll just say I love Thiggy Pop, so be careful what you say about Tyler Thigpen. Marco, you can go now.
It's crazy to think because usually after a Super Bowl, teams are supposed to get a hangover or they're not supposed, or things are supposed to be looking different. But like you guys said, the structure of this team is different than what we've seen from Super Bowl champions in the past, or teams that have attempted to go at dynasty runs, which Kansas City is in the attempt right now. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they are that they are a dynasty, but I'm saying that there have been teams who have tried to try to do that with their own franchise, and they have failed. The Chiefs right now, and what Brett Veach is doing is they have a legit plan, and we're seeing it come to work. In a season where I feel like we should be worried about having the target on us and wanting, and not wanting teams to come after them. It's the complete opposite. I think Thursday night was the most calm I've ever watched the Chiefs game. Even when they were down 7-0, it's like, you know what? We've seen this team knows now too that from their experience in the playoffs, especially last year, that no matter what gets thrown at them, could be a 24-point lead or a 7-point lead, they're going to treat it all like it's the same. And I really, it's kind of crazy, but this team has a lot of swagger. And like Jackson said, we grew up with Chiefs teams that did not have any at all, had none at all. And now this team is at the top. It's a whole new feeling going into the season as a fan.
Yeah, it seems like everything is shifted. Where normally you go in and who's the front runner to win the AFC? It's the Patriots year in and year out. And now you have Tom Brady displaced. He's down in Tampa Bay, and he looks like a clone of Jameis Winston. So nothing's changed down there. And then it should be interesting with the Patriots with Cam Newton. They started out on a good game there, but also nothing impressive. Nothing that kind of makes you think, okay, for sure they're going to be able to move on without Tom Brady and just make it work. So now we're kind of watching, and the only other team that really scares me really is the Ravens. I mean, that's a team that has such a good defense that Lamar Jackson, if he's healthy, is just a guy that you can't really stop. Like, I know a lot of people talk about it like that maybe it's a gimmick type offense, yada, yada, yada. After a year that you can start to key in on him. But the truth of the matter is he is a guy who, when they run the ball with him, they have an extra man advantage. There is going to be one guy who has to tackle him in open field. And even if you do that every play but those couple plays, he's going to break for a big gain, for a touchdown. And, oh, yeah, he can also throw down the field. There's been very few guys that have that game breaker status that also can complete passes. And he has more options. He's getting more comfortable with Marquise Brown. And somehow they win 38-6 against the Browns almost entirely from their defense. You get J.K. Dobbins stealing touchdowns from Mark Ingram, who only brought me 3 points. I lose week 1 fantasy. Makes me sad, but I also watch, and I think that Ravens team could be the only thing that we have to worry about as Chiefs fans. And I just want to know, what did you guys see from the Ravens? Do you think that they're going to be able to be right there and be one of the rare times where Chiefs-Ravens are at the top of the division 2 years in a row? And then is there anybody else in the AFC that we should be worried about?
You know, as far as the Ravens goes, it's kind of like looking at the Chiefs, but in a way, as we saw a team now that last year had it all, but they went into an off season and made a lot of switches and improve their team, especially at the defensive line, adding Derek Wolfe and Calais Campbell. But now also they've added their own, like you said, running back to their offense, who is dynamic, who can run the ball and catch the ball and be that kind of utility player. The Ravens, I'm telling you, man, I think it's the fact that Mahomes has Lamar Jackson's number early on right now. When I watched the Chiefs and Ravens last year, it wasn't as close as a game as the score might say, because the Chiefs were up by I want to say it was 16 to 20 points in the third quarter in that Week 3 game last year, and Ravens had to go into a garbage time kind of thing. They're getting garbage points out of it. They're right there with the Chiefs. That's a team that's the Chiefs should be worried about. But man, it's a confidence thing. I'm telling you, man. I ain't never had this feeling before as a Chiefs fan. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can. But after watching Week 1, I want to see what the Ravens can do. I do believe, though, one last thing. Their pass defense may have gotten better without Earl Thomas, I think. Watching that game against the Browns, and that's what I'm saying. I need to watch more Ravens to see what happens because the Browns are obviously not the hardest test for a defense.
Yeah, I think there was a conversation about could the Baker Mayfield just get back to kind of what he looked like year one now that he doesn't have Freddie Kitchens. And he might still be able to. It might just be that the Ravens defense is that good. That's just the wrong team for him to test it against, and he looked pretty awful Week 1. Jackson, any thoughts on the Ravens or any other big stories in the NFL that sticks out to you?
I think the Ravens are without a doubt one of the best teams in the NFL, but I really wanted to talk about Lamar Jackson and how he's impressed me as a passer. There's been all this talk about how he's a great runner, sure, but he's not a quarterback. He's a running back, blah, blah, blah. You mentioned, the word gimmick. You hear that a lot thrown around when you talk about the Ravens, but I think that Lamar has really improved his passing to the point where he is a legitimate NFL quarterback that's going to pose a lot of challenges for a lot of teams. And the Chiefs, as good as they may look right now and as much of an advantage as they may have, they're not going to have it easy against them in a couple of weeks when those two teams square off. And I'm sure, as Marco mentioned, Patrick Mahomes has had Lamar's number here in the last couple of years. So that's going to be kind of a chip on Lamar's shoulder heading into that game, I would think, making it mean all that much more. So I'm so excited for that game. When you start looking at this schedule and you circle some of those marquee games, that one to me is the one for the Chiefs and the Ravens, because you're really going to see a lot of different things and you're going to learn a whole lot more about what exactly we can expect come week 17 or heading into the playoffs.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, I saw a tweet earlier today, and maybe you guys saw it too. I'm trying to go back to it right now. The Ravens gave up less than 20 yards after the catch against the Browns.
Wow.
Just very that right there is that is a shutdown secondary right there, because right there that your corners and safeties can pass protect and that they could tackle well.
I think that's definitely a testament to their defense, but I think you could also add in a few doses of the other team's quarterback to that as well. Not to dog too much on Baker Mayfield. I just think maybe he might be focusing a little bit too much on his Hulu progressive commercials as he is maybe focus a little bit more on your actual job, as great as your commercials are, Baker. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I think he's so much better at the commercials. Stick with what works for you, guy, and try to last as long as you can in the NFL, because I'm pretty sure they'll take the commercials away once you're done. But you just have to be just good enough. Get 5-10 years in, keep your name out there. Keep just owning Colin Cowherd every 6 months or so, and you can keep getting that payday, Baker. I'm saying focus on what you're good at, and it might not be playing quarterback in the NFL.
What's the one where the Brown Stadium is his home? Because there's 4 of them, and they're great.
Yeah, the most recent one where he's like putting the covers on the seats and talking to the ground crew guy, like, don't just stand there, help me. That one is perfect.
So yeah, he's
company coming over.
See, like, he's so good. Like, imagine if that personality, like, if Peyton Manning had that at his peak, like, that's just so much money you can make right there. But Baker Mayfield's got to work on the field now.
Peyton Manning was great on Saturday Night Live on multiple occasions. Okay,
I'm not saying he can't bring the heat, but he's no Baker Mayfield. Like,
you're right.
Just like Baker Mayfield on the football field is definitely no Peyton Manning.
You got me there. I'll give it to you.
I like to take the easy ones. I got to make sure I get these answers right. Any other big games that stood out to you guys from week 1?
I'll tell you right now, how much of an effect do you think that COVID – all right, so how much of an effect do you think that no fans in the stadiums or the way that sports are playing now will, mess with the future of the season? Not in cancellation or anything like that, but I'm saying, like I was telling you with the NBA when we discussed in earlier podcasts, it could be one of those seasons where, the teams who were there last year in the playoffs, it may be just one of those years where we just see the dominant teams dominate once again. And
I completely agree.
Because I know it, and this is where it's like we just finished week 1. We won't really have an idea of what teams really look like until week 4, 6 area. But I just saw nothing impressive about any like the bottom feeder teams. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that they're predicting who's going to be in the top 10 draft, who's going to have the top 10 pick in next year's draft. It's nothing like the Broncos game last night, Giants game, Bengals, Chargers, Dolphins. I think those are teams that we know what their season's going to be kind of looking like. But like I said, that's just week 1. But yeah, I just, that's just me. And that's the same thing I said with the NBA bubble. But look what happened. We have a 3 and 4 seed playing in the Eastern Conference Finals right now.
It's you really never know. I think that having no fans is certainly going to kind of throw a wrench into things, but you never really know in what direction it's going to impact things.
Mm-hmm.
Because on one hand, you'd think that it would kind of help the favorite in most cases, because if you've got an underdog that's at home, has fans behind it, that's always an advantage. But also, like, coming into an environment where it's just a library is sort of a shock to the system for anybody. And it's going to be for these athletes for a long time to try and get used to that and trying to run out onto an opposing team's field and realize that there's nobody out there. And you have to find your own way to create your own energy and to come out ready to play from the jump without the fans screaming and yelling to kind of get you going. It's going to impact the game in a lot of different ways, but I think it's still quite early to figure out in which direction.
Yeah, and I think for home field advantage, there might be a few things that kind of even it out. I know a lot of people are thinking because you don't have the fans, that home field advantage is kind of gone. But you still are waking up, in your home city instead of traveling. There are advantages. And even in the NBA where they didn't have that, everybody's in the same spot, there is kind of an advantage that everybody has. It's not one team getting an advantage over another, but they actually played better in a lot of ways. Like offensively, they were all going to the same gym. They all had the same depth perception. They were able to adjust quick enough that we started seeing lights out shooting that was extremely fun to watch in the first couple rounds of the NBA playoffs. In the NFL, I don't know if there'll be a similar thing, but you got to think that when you're still traveling, you're going to somebody else's stadium, and those players have been playing on their field with nobody there all week. They are going to feel more comfortable than a team that has to come in and adjust, where, some of these teams might have played at Arrowhead Stadium in a few years and they're always worried about the crowd. Now they're going to come into Arrowhead Stadium and have to adjust to, this is how it feels in this stadium right now with 0 people in it. And I think that shock to the system will probably continue throughout most of the year, even as they kind of get used to this being the new normal, as it were. But they're not going to be used to each stadium that they walk into. And so I think the home team will still have an advantage that is less travel, being prepared, have already gotten in good reps in practice at that, at that field. and I think it'll still help them. I don't know by how much, but they're still more of a home field advantage than we're seeing in a sport like the NBA where they put them all in the same gym. But we'll just have to watch and see, because it's so hard to judge, because a lot of this is how much is less practice, how much is whatever we saw week 1 was entirely based on the fact that they didn't get the same types of reps that they would normally get going into a season. As they go in for a few more weeks, we'll start to see, okay, this is what they look like when they've been able to get a helmet on a helmet and are prepared each Sunday. I'm trying to think of a good game to jump into. I think Cards 49ers really stood out to me, because if Chiefs aren't going to have that Super Bowl lull, it might be the 49ers. And I don't want to criticize them, because a loss to the Cardinals right now might seem like that rough week for a team that came off a Super Bowl loss. But also that Cards team is ready to do some damage this year. Kyler Murray is in top form. He was gift-wrapped DeAndre Hopkins, which doesn't happen every day as a quarterback in the NFL. And that team just looks like, they were going through a tough 49ers defense. And I don't think that was regression from the 49ers defense. I think that was a huge step forward from a Cardinals team that Kyler Murray already did great last year, and he's ready for a really good sophomore campaign.
Yeah, I thought Kyler looked really good in the brief bits of that game that I saw on Red Zone. I don't have the luxury of watching that entire game, but it certainly looked good from what I saw.
You got to find a cousin who has an NFL Sunday ticket. That's the key. And borrow the password.
Well, shoot, at this point, I might just spend the money on it myself and see what I can do. But like I said, from what I saw, he looked really good. And I think that it just goes to show that he was never really bad at all last year. He just didn't have any help. And it's amazing what he can do when you just give him a weapon. He just got one, and it wasn't just a good weapon. He got a great weapon. And he put it to use like never before in week 1. So I can't wait to see what those two accomplish over the course of this season, because it's going to be special.
I will say this season, the tone of it for the NFL, I feel like it's kind of like a clapback season a little bit. You got DeAndre Hopkins clapping back at the Texans for trading him. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to shut all the haters down who are saying that this is going to be a step back season. He's 37 years old, too old. We could be on the verge of a really fun NFL season, especially with the storylines that were made in this offseason. Kyler Murray, I will say, with the Cardinals, I do play with them on Madden as a fun franchise to see where I could grow. It gives you a good idea of how you are as a GM, because that's a team that needs to grow. I finished 3-13 the first season, traded for Julio Jones, so not DeAndre Hopkins, but another top elite receiver. Went 13-3 and went to the NFC Championship. So it can happen. Yeah. Cardinals could blow up from
Madden. It can be done in real life. That's all there is to it.
I don't know why. Were you playing on all Madden? Why were you 3-13? I don't care if you were the Cardinals base. You didn't need Julio Jones. 3-13? Come on, man.
We needed Julio. I'll tell you right now, he came back, he put up 17 TDs with Colin.
I would have put up 17 TDs with who was the wide receiver that got drafted and knew shit from last year. I would have taken that guy and got 17 TDs. Yeah, I would have just murdered with him. So I was thinking of you said Aaron Rodgers. That's a good one. It was an idea I had in my head. I forgot, and you brought it back up, Marco. So good job. That is a question I was going to have. You already gave your answer that you think he's going to have a really good year, but you described it as people saying he's going to have a step back year. That's not what the argument's been. It's that he's already stepped back, that he's already basically washed. And when you think of him as an elite talent, he hasn't been that for years. And even last year, 13-3, that was entirely off of defense and a running game. Now he goes into this year. He heard a lot of people talking shit, and he decided not to give my running back Aaron Jones the carries in the red zone. He just kept throwing that to whatever that wide receiver is.
Scatling.
Too many names, don't know, but he kept throwing him TDs instead of my guy. It made me very upset. So I'll go with Jackson now. Do you think that Aaron Rodgers is still going to be that elite guy? Do you think what we just saw week 1 is what we can expect the rest of the year?
I mean, obviously, I think there's going to probably be some downfall weeks. He's going to have some lulls. But to me, he showed in 1 week about as well as you can show that, hey, I'm still here. And all the talk has been about how he doesn't have hardly any weapons outside of Devontae Adams. Well, it seemed like it didn't really matter against the Vikings. You know, he was tossing the ball all over the place, and Valdez-Scantling looked like an elite level receiver, which I don't know how you make a guy like that look that good. He even made Equanimeous St. Brown look decent a couple of times. I mean, that's the type of quarterback that you're going to be talking about for a long time, no matter how old he is. And I mean, he's 37. Yes, that's aging, but it's not like Tom Brady aging. He's still got 5 years or so before we have that maybe you ought to hang it up conversation. So I'm not ready to write it.
Have we moved the goalpost at this point? Like quarterbacks, we're just expecting 42 years old. Is that where we're at right now?
I don't know if we're expecting it, but it seems like for that generation of quarterbacks, that
it's
all
two
they
guys. It's Tom Brady and Drew Brees. Who are the other guys who are in their 40s doing this shit?
I would lump Peyton Manning with that because like the
Peyton Manning was like 38 and a skeleton. They won off of the rest of the team. Like there's nobody else. It's those two guys. Like now we're just assuming Aaron Rodgers with a dozen injuries already has had 3 down years. He's gonna play till 42. I'm not so sure, Jackson.
Well, clearly the Packers aren't so sure either because they drafted Jordan Love.
Which probably is the reason we saw so many touchdowns that first week.
That's why he looked so good, is he said, okay, go ahead. Draft your first-round quarterback or whatever. I'm just going to go off for another year or two and make you regret that decision for a little while. That's the chip on his shoulder.
Maybe he plays well enough by week 6, they trade him. Trick somebody, get the trade value up because we know Aaron Rodgers is really done and not making it until 42. I don't know why Jackson's making things up like that. Which is a ridiculous projection for him.
He's going to make it to 41. I'm telling you. 4 more years. 4 more years.
How old's Big Ben? So we got Aaron Rodgers 37. How old's Big Ben?
I think Big Ben 37 too, honestly. Or 38. Because he just signed that 2-year deal to put him in the 40, I think.
So we'll see. I mean, if Big Ben can make it to 40, then I will count like that's the new bar. Because Big Ben basically just got destroyed for years. His body is crushed. If he can make it to 40 and still be out there slinging, fine. We'll change the ruling. The new rules have made it where quarterbacks can play into their 40s. But until then, stop assuming they're going to make it to 42. Come on, guys. Big Monday night games. The only one I really want to talk about because the Broncos game is just trash. Titans are trash. I don't know why we had to watch that. The Titans were a miracle run last year. Don't expect it to happen again. But that Rams Cowboys. Oh man, I was so excited to watch that. I was told the Cowboys could be like the Chiefs, trying to put up 35 points a game. That offense was going to be rolling, and they couldn't get the field goal to keep that one going. 20-17. That's sad, right? Like you can't talk them up that much and be stuck in a situation where they can barely put points on the board.
I felt like they had potential. I think the potential is there, but I agree. It was a very underwhelming performance for the buildup that was there. It was the whole oh man, this team was only held back by Jason Garrett. That was the whole conversation. He said, new head coach Mike McCarthy, man, it's going to be a new look. They're going to be way better. They're going to score a lot more points.
Maybe they'll go for it on 4th and short at midfield. Who knows? No, not going to change up the decisions at all.
All it was underwhelming, and I'm hoping as a Dak Prescott fantasy owner, things start trending in a different direction, but I'm not so sure about it after week 1.
Marco, are the Cowboys worse than the Rams jerseys?
No, because nothing will be worse than those jerseys. God,
they started growing me. About halfway through, once I went blind from staring at the bright colors, they look fine. They're cool.
They look like it just looked like an attempt at what the Seahawks gray jerseys are like. But man, the Rams just utterly filled because like the Seahawks gray ones, they're tough. These Rams ones, they look like it was made by a 7-year-old or something, or in a generic Madden room. I don't know. But the Cowboys, I think it's just the Cowboys. They're going to be frustrating. When you play against a player like Aaron Donald, that's a defensive player that can disrupt your whole game plan. And I think that's just what happened. I think that the Cowboys came out and their offensive game plan just did not work at all against a Rams defense that was surprisingly well. I don't know. The Rams have always been a weird team to me, and especially now with where they're spending money at. Like, they just gave Cooper Kupp a crazy extension. But like I said, it's week 1. I don't think we haven't seen the true teams of all 32 teams yet. But the Cowboys, you're right, coming out flat there, just not the way that they would want to start. Give them more time. Let him stir the pot a little bit. And that's the same thing I can say about with the Broncos. You got to give more time. They were missing Cortland Sutton and another one of their rookie receivers in that first game, because I'll tell you right now, those are two teams who are trying to build an explosive offense, and it'll get there. But you need a little bit more time. You need some chemistry. You got to get that chemistry built, and I think that it's just timing. It's all just timing, especially with the Cowboys. Broncos, it could be timing and the coaching thing. But those two teams are more comparable than you would think.
All right. We got Jackson. Any last thoughts? I think we're going to wrap up NFL and try to jump to NBA. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but we'll get your last thoughts, and then we'll jump to what do you guys think is going to be the top game for week 2 to watch?
I don't have anything extra to add other than next week I'm really looking forward to Seahawks-Patriots.
Yeah,
that's going to be a fun one. So, we got Cam Newton going up against Russell Wilson, who it seems like the less cool Russell Wilson gets on social media, the better football player he is. So I hope he just does some sort of really bad viral video sometime that can beat out his last one, because once that happens, I don't know, he might get an MVP vote for the first time. Who knows? Might happen.
Right.
All right, so that was the game I was going to pick. So Jackson beat me to it. Marco, any other game you see on the slate that you're excited for?
Washington and Arizona. Let's see who's faker and who's really going to be. Let's see what follows up from both of their big wins. Who follows up? Who is the faker and who is? I don't even. What's the other one? What's that saying? Faker and.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I have no idea.
I don't even know what I'm talking about either. Who's the maker? Who's the faker? And who's going to make some W's?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I have no idea. But not Washington is the answer. So that's all we have for NFL. Now we're going to jump to NBA real fast. And we're already missing some of the Game 7. So whatever we say will already be irrelevant. But I did want to talk about just where we're at right now with Clippers and Nuggets are going to face off to decide who goes on to face the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Already underway with the Eastern Conference Finals, which I was setting up this podcast, so I missed it. We're got a couple minutes left. Celtics might actually knock off the Heat in Game 1, up 5 right now with just a couple minutes to play. But even if the Heat lose, they've had such an impressive run to get to this point. I just want to figure out, how impressed you guys are with the Heat, and then we'll go negative right after that and talk about the future for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So starting out, we'll let Marco go first. Are you shocked by the Miami Heat making this run to get to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Heck no, I'm not shocked. What did I tell you? What did I tell you, man? What did I tell you, Mac? It was going to be the young teams in the Eastern Conference Finals, man.
Pretty vague prediction. I don't think they would have paid out if you made a bet on that. Young teams make it. See, I told you.
Well, one of my teams made it. I did have the Bucks in it, given the benefit of the doubt. But I had no idea that they were going to come out and play they did against the Heat. The Heat just looked like a more complete team, and that's what scares me about this Eastern Conference is that. There's players. I was talking about chemistry earlier. These two teams right here have some of the best chemistry in basketball, and they got two of the best coaches in the NBA also. And congrats to Big Spoelstra for getting back out there, getting back into big games like this one because he is a coach that I think got overshadowed a little bit because he had LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh. So give credit where credit is due now to him because I think it's long overdue. And the Heat, they've been doing everything right. And Jimmy Butler is a good leader for this young group of kids. The Tyler Hero just made second team all rookie today. He's been playing like a stud in these playoffs. It's not like his first playoff appearance. This Heat team is special, and like you said, that it's such a big accomplishment for them making it to the conference finals that, given they win or lose, no matter how the season ends, they finish with an A in my book for this year.
All right, Jackson, as the not Bucks but Giannis fan, what team should Giannis immediately tuck his tail and run to after just getting walloped by the Miami Heat?
I want him to stay. So badly do I want him to stay. Because I think as much as I like him, if he leaves and goes somewhere like to the Warriors or to some super team, I'm just going to lose a lot of respect for him because there's something to be said for building something in the place where you come up. And there's not a lot of that these days with some of the superstar players. And I thought that he was going to be different. But right now, I'm not so sure. It's really kind of a weird situation because clearly the Bucks are willing to do whatever it takes to keep him there.
Except sign Malcolm Brogdon to a contract. Other than that, everything else.
But, I mean, man, I hope he doesn't go anywhere. I don't have any insight as to where he might land.
Raptors.
I just all I'm saying is
Did I not block the mic when I did that? My bad. That was supposed to be a secret, guys. My bad.
I just want him to stay in Milwaukee. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, Toronto Raptors. Good decision. So yeah, I think it was tough to watch, but it's weird how that wasn't surprising. That the Bucks became the Toronto Raptors, and the Toronto Raptors, well, they were still the Toronto Raptors. But for a couple games, Raptors impressed me. They won. They made it look like they could take down the Celtics. So I was impressed with that. And Lowry keeps building on his resume, and it looks really good. Wasn't nearly enough because the Celtics just have so many pieces, so many guys. And when I look at that team, when I look at the cohesiveness of the Miami Heat, I see two great teams that I love to watch. But the question is, can they win a championship? Of either the Heat or the Celtics, do either one have a shot of going up against whether it's the Lakers or the Clippers, or whether it's the greatest basketball player in the world right now, Jokic, and the Nuggets? Do those teams have a chance of actually beating the Western Conference champion?
Yeah, I absolutely have a chance.
I said that with a lot of confidence together.
It's because it's true, especially right now with as not confident as I am in the Clippers. But, I mean, the Nuggets aren't apparently a great team until they get down 3-1. So I mean, as long as you avoid letting them get to 3-1, you're going to be fine.
You just give up 2 games early, or what's the?
Yeah,
I don't know what the strategy is to avoid that.
Just give them the first 2, and then you're fine. You're golden. They're done. Done, Shane.
Seems like it might be better to try to aim for that sweep, but you might be right, Jackson. Giving up games sounds good. That's a good way to advance in the playoffs. Marco, you said it with confidence as well. Which team, if you had to pick one, you think, not just from the score of tonight's game, but when you're trying to figure out who can actually match up with the Lakers or the Clippers, which team do you think needs to make it out of the Eastern Conference Finals and give them a run for their money?
Gosh, man, because both teams could, but I think it's the Clippers because, once again, it's just better roster up and down. And
sorry, I meant on the other side. I meant with the Heat and the Celtics. Which one needs to win and can actually knock off one of the LA teams?
Oh, my God. I think I will. It's a Celtics because who's going to stop Anthony Davis on the Heat? Who's going to Bam Adebayo? He can give him a challenge.
He did a good job with Giannis.
He did a good job. You did a good job with Giannis, but I think Davis and Giannis are two different people. I think Davis has a little bit more length. It's probably the Celtics because, well, now see, and here's the thing: it could be the Celtics or Heat because where do you beat the Lakers? You beat them with the guards because you can't beat them with length. You got to try to beat them with the guards. Rockets unfortunately could not do that. But what the Celtics and Heat have is that they have someone better than they have someone down low who could challenge AD as far as winning the battles against him. I don't see it happening, but I think I just feel like it's the Celtics then. I just like Jason Tatum too much, man. I like that.
We finally got an answer. We got some waffling there. We finally got an answer. I will do an equal waffle. My pick, I think if it's the Clippers, if they can actually beat the Nuggets tonight, then the team that's best built to beat the Clippers is the Celtics. They have wings for days, so they can actually try to match up with Kawhi and Paul George. They have the rest of that roster that is actually deep enough to go up against a Clippers team that when they're playing well, the Clippers really deep and go at you, they take games off. The Celtics aren't taking games off. And as long as Kemba Walker's knees hold up, that is a team that can beat the Clippers. I think if it's the Lakers, then you're right. Then, you want to hope that those wings can do something, but Anthony Davis is going to shred them. You won't have the size to keep up. Tice is not going to be able to stand in his way. And even if you did try to go the bigger lineup with the Celtics, that's what the Lakers would want anyways. They have centers for days. And so if you go big, they're ready for that as well. So I think the Celtics, while on paper for a while, I thought that was a team that had enough to kind of keep up with the Lakers. I think Anthony Davis, the way we've seen him play, I don't think they have a player on that roster. Miami, on the other hand, I wasn't sure until I saw Bam Adebayo go up against Giannis. And while it was a team effort, it was stacking that lane with 4 guys every time. It worked, and Bam is the type of guy that not only will be able to give Anthony Davis just a little bit of trouble on the defensive end, he is going to tire out one of those bigs on the offensive end because that man goes 100 miles per hour, and he still has a couple of years. If he can improve some of his skill sets, he is going to be a difficult player to stop for the foreseeable future. It's just right now, he's not quite that player, but he doesn't need to be. All he needs to do is be a difficult matchup for Anthony Davis, and the rest of that Miami Heat team, they have so much energy. They're so fierce. They have enough shooting. The guards, you're not going to win in that matchup with just trying to beat them that way, but they're not bad at the guards position. And you got Jimmy Butler, who has irrational confidence that has not come to bite him at this point. Maybe it will in the conference finals or in the NBA finals. But as it is right now, when that team needs a bucket, Jimmy Butler says, I'm the guy, and he has been right more often than not. So if I'm going those two matchups, that's the split there. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if the Clippers can even get past Jokic because Jokic is, like I said, best player in the world. He's my hero because, maybe it's just because he's out-of-shape white guy who keeps dominating in the playoffs. He can't get eliminated before Game 7. That's a pretty good record to have. When we have those bullshit stats you see on Instagram with the little graphics and they just pick and choose what makes one player seem better than the other, that's a pretty damn good one to have is I don't lose unless it's a Game 7. And half the time, I still win that one. I'm excited to watch, and so we're going to have to finish up this podcast really fast because I'm missing too much Jokic time.
That's all right. Yeah, no, we can do that.
All right, Jackson, anything left?
The Celtics and Heat just went to overtime,
so
we really got to get out of here.
NBA, we want to bring you coverage, but there's no point in us keep talking about things that are going to be outdated in 10 minutes. So we're done. That's it. That's all we have for this episode of the Too Many Points podcast. I promise we're going to start coming back more often, definitely weekly. And who knows, I almost talked Bobby G into a Monday morning quarterback edition of the pod, although considering his recent track record, don't expect us to have a podcast this Monday morning. But that's all we have. Jackson Schneider, Marco Marquez, thanks for coming on today. And thanks for listening, guys. Later, folks. I will find the stop button at some point.